Whoop, there we go. Sorry, I was muted. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Agentic AI in the financial industry, secure, automated, and actionable. We're thrilled to have you with us today for this Good Data webinar, all about how we're approaching Agentic AI in the financial industry with our key customers and clients. So buckle up. We've got a lot to share today, and let's get into that. So here we go. All right, so what are we going to talk about? We're going to set the stage, how fintech is different from other industries. And it is significantly different, we find, when we look at our fintech customers versus customers in other parts of the economy. We'll give a solution overview. How does good data help? We'll try to keep that brief. And then really what we want to talk about is use cases that we can share with you of what our clients are doing and demo some of the latest advances we've made as far as our technology is concerned. So, a little housekeeping before we jump into it. Y'all are muted, so don't worry about it. You can ooh and ah all you want. When we get to the demo, no one will hear you. We do have a Q&A in Zoom, and if you've never attended one of our webinars before, this is not like a boring corporate webinar where we're going to read a bunch of slides and then at the end we'll have 5 minutes for questions. Think about this more like your kid's Twitch live stream. So if you get a question into the Q&A, we will do our best to answer it as soon as we can while it's still relevant to the conversation. So it's more fun for us. It's more fun for you if you get those questions in. And so use that Q&A box as much as you can. And then finally, there will be a follow-up email with a recording. So you'll get access to this. You can share with your friends and family as you see fit. Okay. Quick introductions before we jump in. I'm Ryan Dolley, VP of Product Strategy at Good Data. And I will let my co-presenters introduce themselves here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chase. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm our VP of Strategic Accounts, and I work with several of our customers who are in the finance industry and fintech. And I myself have worked in data and analytics in various capacities in this space for about the past decade, maybe a little bit more. So it's good to be here.
Thanks, Chase. Peter? Got to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hey everyone, Peter Fedorocko. I'm a field CTO here in Good Data. I also have been for 18 years in analytics and spent last 10 years in augmented and AI analytics. And I'll try to show you a couple of cool demos today. So stay tuned. I'm looking forward to this one.
One of Peter's jobs is to undersell it, right? He will successfully show you cool demos. All right, a little bit about who we are. So we are an end-to-end agentic AI and analytics platform. There's three. I won't go through a huge diagram or anything like that. There's really three layers of what we offer. There's AI Lake, which is the knowledge base for your agents. This is where you can store the data that your agents need. Then there's AI Hub, where it's a suite of applications, MCPs, SDKs, all the knowledge and everything that's necessary to govern and orchestrate your agents. And then finally, there's AI Apps. This is the customer-facing part of the agents. So this could take many forms, could look like classic BI, could look like a fully custom agentic interface that looks nothing like BI. It's really up to you. We give you the pieces and we help you assemble it into the right experience for the right audience. And why we have this application and why Good Data looks the way it does today is because of this fundamental shift in the analytics industry. Analytics and business intelligence have always been the data interface, but they're more and more about data intelligence as we move forward. So the point of BI, my whole career, which is about 15, 17 years now in data, has been to give you an interface so you can go in and understand the data. And increasingly, we have expert systems that can understand the data in partnership with you and make it easier for you to make decisions and even autonomously make decisions on your behalf. And as we move in that direction as an industry, Good Data is moving in that direction and has moved in that direction as a platform. And so everything you're going to see today is kind of based on this three-tier, that we talked about here, Lake, Hub, and Apps. We'll show you the types of things you can build with that and give you examples from our customers of what people are doing right now with Good Data. All right, so let's set the stage a little bit about how we view fintech and financial services as being different from from other parts of the economy. And I want to start with this. This is a piece of research that was recently done by one of the Federal Reserve banks. And I thought this was one of the most interesting pieces of research related to data that I have found in a really long time. So how to understand this? Well, really, what they did is they looked at major US banks and they found this really surprising result. They analyzed the job descriptions and headcounts at the banks, and they found that the more AI and data science roles a bank had, the higher its operational loss ratio was, which is quite surprising. This is why you see on here, smart machines, dumb mistakes, right? So in other words, the more a bank automates, the more they tend to lose money on things like fraud and compliance failures and system outages. And it's not really that AI is bad. It's just that automation is introducing these new kinds of operational risks that traditional controls weren't designed for. And as AI gets more autonomous and agentic, I think we will see this tail risk really widen, right? As a system can do more and more without human intervention. And that's why we really need to focus on building up the right architectures to prevent this from happening. And you can see some of the stats here. 90th percentile events occur more often. 99th percentile events, so these are the really catastrophically costly events, get more costly the more a bank has AI and automation integrated into what they're doing. And so I would encourage you to read the paper. It's quite long. If you want to drop it into ChatGPT or Claude and ask it to summarize, you can do that too. But I read the paper, and I just think this is, to me, is such a standout piece of research on why we need platforms like Good Data in financial services. So check it out. So, when you operate in the financial industry, AI experiments are not low risk. Our customers who are in e-commerce and certainly, social media companies, they can do small AI experiments, and they're not governed by these frameworks necessarily like FINRA and SOC 2 and all these types of things, right? And so you see a lot of that right now. Everybody's doing crazy things with agents. It's not going to work to be crazy in financial services, right? You need explainable, traceable, compliant, and there's a lot of challenges that financial services and fintech firms face. Data is fragmented and guarded. I can tell you in interacting with our customers in this industry, this is one of the biggest ones. They have data from so many different sources, from partners. They have old mainframes. They have new cloud warehouses. They have API sources. They're making acquisitions. They're acquiring smaller banks, and those smaller banks are bringing in their own systems. And so it creates a really complex data landscape. And what you ultimately need in this complex data landscape is what we call deterministic retrieval, right? So ultimately this idea of, like AI is going to be 95% right, and that's okay if you're e-com. It's not okay in banking, right? It's not okay in payment processing. And so that's one of the things that we're really designing for when it comes to financial services. And ultimately it's all about trust. Errors in the banking industry create headlines that both clients and regulators don't like. And if you've worked in the industry for any amount of time, you've seen this, right? And so, yes, we want these autonomous AIs, but they need to be paired with auditor grade standards that can govern what happened, explain what happened, can verify that the right thing is going on. And in the event that something does go wrong, gives you a defensible position. Why did this happen? Well, we took all the right steps in order to prevent it from happening, right? And so that's really the key thing that we're architecting at Good Data to help you in the financial industry. And the end game is an AI that you can trust, that you can, is ultimately defensible, that you can look at and say, we put in the right safeguards, we did all the right stuff, we minimized errors and hallucinations, and now we're in a good position going forward to minimize those operational risks that we saw earlier on in the presentation. I don't know, Chase or Peter, if there's anything you want to add there before I move on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a simple example you can think of is that if you have some sort of chatbot enabled with your organization and you have one of your customers chatting with this chatbot and it makes some recommendation that is illegal, or maybe just bad financial advice, maybe not illegal, or has some sort of tone of voice and is suddenly rude to your customer. There's all sorts of things that can happen there. And if it's ChatGPT, generally the bar is pretty low. It doesn't really have any impact. But if you have a chatbot that's recommending illegal things to your customers, that can have a really big impact for your organization. So there's a lot of different areas of exposure that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I think I just summarized it with one sentence, right? AI pilots are easy, production AI is hard, right? And you will see it some of my demos. It's all about the trust and the governance, and how do we make sure that that there are no data leakages or agents going crazy and burning through your budgets, right? So there's a lot of things that you need to consider. We usually call it 4 risks of AI, right? The risk of AI itself, hallucinations, leakage, cost of AI, right? The black boxes, you don't know what is happening inside, and then how long it takes you to get it from a pilot to production. So agree with everything you gentlemen said.
We do have a question here from Peter Muncie. He asks, is this going to be relevant for private equity investors? I don't want to derail anything. I might be in the wrong place. I met you all at Gartner DNA conference this year and have been following from afar, have been very impressed. So first of all, thank you, Peter. I think the actual content we have is probably not super narrowly tailored to private equity, but at the end, we're going to do a demo of the types of applications you can build with the Agentic platform. And I would suggest that may spur some ideas for you, right, on how you might be able to adapt what we're talking about to private equity. So I would encourage you to stick around and see what we have at the end.
Yeah,
and thanks for the question.
Yeah, especially around the reasoning agents and the deep research agents, right?
There will be some. You'll definitely want to see that, Peter. And listen, folks, as you can see, Peter asked a question, I answered it right away. So get questions in the Q&A, and we will make sure that we address them as they come up. Okay. So the solution overview, like what are we trying to do? It ultimately comes down to these 4 things: observable, explainable, auditable, and accountable. And I won't beat this. I won't focus too much on this slide. That's ultimately what the platform delivers. So how we do that is, if we want to get technical for a second here, we have this embedded semantic layer and knowledge catalog, and you can kind of see a picture here. You see on the screen what we call our memory catalog. I think that will feature in the demo at some point, Peter. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the ability for you to give the AI access to all the knowledge, to give it memories, to give it instructions. When people use these terms, you translate that to this type of response. We have 8 customers. The 8 customers maybe use different terminology to refer to the same field. So all 8 of these different things really mean this one data point, all of that sort of stuff. We'll lower the inaccuracy of your agents and increase the applicability to what your customers are asking. Another really important thing is this idea of composable design. So really good data is almost like a Lego kit. And you can take the Lego kit, and of course you can use what we've built with it. Like my son and I build Legos all the time, and we mostly build what's in the instructions. And then we tear it apart and we rebuild it into something that fits our vision for what it should be. And that's how good data is too. We have a pre-configured environment for you. You can use it as is, but what our best customers do is, yes, they use that, but they also take the Lego pieces and they integrate it with their models, their APIs, their regulatory workflows, and integrate it into their front end so that it's not a BI tool. It's really kind of like the agentic powerhouse of your applications. We also have a deterministic query engine. So we're not asking the LLM to create and execute all the queries. We're really using the LLMs and the agents for the interpretation of what should happen, the evaluations, the planning, and then we hand everything off when it comes time to pull a number. We hand everything off to a query engine that cannot hallucinate. Like it's not possible. It's a classic SQL query engine that gets an accurate answer 100% of the time. And then finally, accountability. You can go in and see, why did the models do what they do? Why did the agents do what they do? To give you that defensibility that we talked about earlier in the presentation. So I want to get into the use cases and the demo now. We've gone through that pretty quick, but I think that was all necessary preamble to understand what we're going to look at. Anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, Ryan, actually, if you wouldn't mind, if you go back to the previous slide, I just want to touch on that because I think this is a very, very important part of the use cases that we work on and the actual productionalization of this AI. Because I think, we talk about the risk associated with doing this for fintech, and that the way that you prevent that risk is through these things. So being observable, explainable, audible, and accountable. You know, it's maybe not the most important part of the project, but it's pretty close. Like without all of these things, you don't know what the AI is doing. You don't know if it's giving correct responses. We put guardrails in place to prevent hallucinations, but this is what helps you and your organization get through the governance and the compliance that you need to put these into production, and then have the confidence going forward that the AI is doing what it needs to do, and not these other things that expose your organization and create risk. So it's not the fun part of the project, but it's really the necessary part to get to the end state and achieve the goals that you're looking for. So
Awesome.
that's my little spiel about the not fun parts of this, but really are the foundation for these use cases that I'll talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So let's dive into the use cases here. I'm going to hand things over to Chase because Chase works really closely with our customers in this space in order to enable these use cases. So Chase, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So there's three use cases that I'll talk about here. The first one is transaction fraud prevention. And this is a very dynamic space. It's complex. There's lots of data, lots of variables. And fraud managers who are trying to prevent fraud from all of these bad actors are competing with fraudsters who are also using AI. They have ever evolving tactics. They work together, they share knowledge. And so they are tasked with doing something that is incredibly difficult. And they're doing this generally with static rules-based systems. And so they have to use rules to catch fraud and say, okay, this transaction has these criteria, and therefore it's likely fraudulent. And that's a very complex thing to do. And so we're working with some of our customers to build agents to address this in a variety of different ways. One that I think is probably the most important off the top of my head is to identify what we call areas of opportunity to create new fraud rules. So this could be analyzing the data and saying, there's a lot of fraud for this particular thing, so we'll create a new fraud rule to capture that type of fraud. But it could also be modification of existing rules. So if you have a fraud score, for example, maybe you have a fraud scoring system, you say, okay, all of the transactions that have a fraud score over 800 will likely be fraud. Well, that score of 800 over time will change. And it might be that needs to move to 750, or maybe it needs to move to 850, and there's variables there. So the fraud rule that you've created 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, that might not be as effective as it should be because the ecosystem has changed. Fraud has moved into another direction. So you can use AI to actually identify those areas of change and modify that rule, dynamically based off what's happening. You can also use it to look at ineffective or overlapping rules and make sure that you have a consistent rule set. And then overall, with all of the changes, you can have a lot of noise with fraud and what transactions are happening, or scams or threats or whatever it is. And so you can also use AI to identify the trends and say, okay, we're going to send an alert. This looks like an emerging fraud scheme that we'll have to be aware of, and change our process or change our rules so you can kind of cut through the noise and identify this and have an alert that sort of escalates this internally within your organization.
Yeah, thanks, Chase. We did have a question come in there from Christian Diaz. He asks, how do you make AI models explainable, accountable, observable, etc.? I think, Peter, this might be a good one for you to tackle.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I want to share one slide. I know that I'm on,
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll just start with the, answer. Yeah, the foundational piece is a semantic model, right? We believe that just agents going straight into the data is a danger zone where a lot of bad things can happen, right? The hallucination and drifts and data privacy leakage. And BI, at some extent, already fixed this problem and have been working on this problem for the last 15 to 20 years. It's a semantic model that Ryan mentioned, right? This is a common definition. This is the governance layer. But when you think about AI and agents, they need even more, right? So it's not about rebuilding the governance layer or coming up with something new. It's about extending the existing semantic layers. And how we are thinking about it here in big data is the semantic layer evolves into something we call intelligence layer, because the BI needed only a common definition of the metrics, but it's not enough for AI and agents. They need to have a more business context around these metrics, and they need to have a persistent memory, right? And they need to be governed, right? And this is also, when you think about it, this is really this bottleneck between the agents and the data through all the communication goes. So we make sure that agents, since all their requests come through this intelligence layer, the semantic layer, we can trace what they are asking on the input, measure, things like hallucination rates, latencies, cost, right? Measure what's going on the input. So evaluate these inputs and make sure that they are correct, right? But then also trace back, right? So I can go back into the conversation someone had with the agent and actually see exactly what they were asking, and not going through some generated SQL or some bunch of reasoning, right? But seeing, okay, it actually grounded this answer in this metric, in this particular data set, and so on and so on. So obviously, I'm very excited about this field, and I can go in for hours and hours, but I think, one sentence would be, just don't put your agents on the data. Think about semantic layer, but I think there's a lot of requirements that the AI and agents actually put on a semantic model, and it needs to be extended into this intelligence layer. Some of the things that are necessary you have already seen on Ryan's slides, and some of the things that how we are trying to tackle it and what a good intelligence layer actually means, you will see in my demos soon.
Yeah, I think one way I kind of think about it, Christian, is you want to give your agent kind of levers to pull that you can explain, right? And so you can go back and reconstruct what it did and say, okay, it found these memories that guided its decision making, and then it went and pulled this data from the semantic model, and then it took this deterministic downstream action, so that you can minimize kind of the surface area of the ghost in the machine, right? The fact that these LLMs are prone to hallucination, and we haven't solved that problem yet. But by having the infrastructure around it so you can explain everything it did and why, it kind of gives you that explainability, accountability, observability, et cetera, right? So you're not trying to cram everything into that LLM action, which is prone to hallucination and very hard to explain why it did what it did.
Yeah. For me, from a business perspective, it's about data and transparency, really simply. It's about collecting the data around the decisions that are being made and then exposing them so that you can see, what decisions are being made, what conversations are taking place, and then being able to review that and then make changes. So using the infrastructure to make sure that it's using the semantic layer from a technical level, and it's not answering questions by making things up because the data is not in the semantic layer, but also checking the conversations of the chatbot so you can see that it's doing what it's going to do. And if it's not, then you put some rules and some guardrails in place to address those scenarios.
Awesome. Good question, Christian. Thank you. Chase, compliance and data accuracy.
Yeah, so these industries have lots of regulations, which can be complex, and it can cause a lot of operational inefficiency, which ultimately exposes the organization. So I think being able to track data and identify malformed data and making sure that compliance rules are being followed can require a deep technical understanding from many people within the organization in a variety of ways. And so we can use agents to augment those teams and help them do their jobs better, to do things like flag data lineage issues and suggest compliant fixes. So it might be that there's somehow bad data in there that can cause issues down the line, and you can use agents to actually track that and capture that early on. You can do things like take real world processes and documentation and make sure they apply to what you're doing. So I have an example. I'm working with one customer where they have like sales payouts and vendor and partner relationships that are largely stored within PDFs. And then they have a payout system down the line. And they have a really complex process right now to make sure that the actual payout process that they have matches these PDFs. And that's really difficult for them, especially if something changes, with complex rules and payout scales. And so what we're looking at doing is taking those PDFs, storing them as unstructured data, and then the agent can actually check that data and compare it to what's actually happening and automatically flag things that might be incorrect. And then the human can go in and say, okay, yes, this is correct, or this is not correct, or whatever it might be. So that's a good, I think, very tactical example of an area where you have a process that's complicated and uses humans to basically review everything. And instead an agent can do that pretty efficiently. And then the last year is that you can use agents to generate compliance documents and check regulatory compliance before publication. So I think there's a lot of process around writing reports that have to get published, and AI can help do that faster and make sure that it's compliant, which I think can be a pretty complex issue. There's one of these cases that I thought of where there's a customer of mine and they have transaction processing that's coming in, and if someone is submitting transactions with malformed data or bad data, eventually they start getting charged fees, and it can be really difficult for them to understand what rules they didn't follow or why is the data bad. And so we're working on building a process that will help them understand if you have error code ABC, you don't have to read through all of the documentation. We're going to tell you error code ABC and DEF are the two things, and this is how they're explained, and this is how you change them. And so they don't have to actually go through the documentation. We're going to take that documentation and give them the answers right there.
That's good. And Chase, I think these are one of the things I want to key in on is these are really good examples when we were talking earlier about, how do I ensure accuracy and trust and those sorts of things in the models. What we're talking about here is using AI to evaluate issues and then escalate to a human being. And that is kind of an important piece of the context with these agents. You're not going to want to turn them on and say, hey, now you're in charge of approving all of these complex rule changes, right? You can use the agent as a very proactive evaluation tool and then have a human being go in and validate what it's finding.
Yeah, it's all about the risk profile. And for these types of things, you still need a human in the loop. And I think you will for some time. If you have some other automated process that's low risk, maybe the agent can do it all by itself, but that's a decision your organization will have to make. And for these types of things, we certainly wouldn't recommend just letting it loose. That's going to cause the problems you had on the very first slide, if nothing else, right?
Exactly. Okay, and our third use case, identifying fraudulent merchants.
Yeah, this is a kind of an interesting one. So, from a merchant standpoint, you have two different sides of it. You have issuers and acquirers. And it's getting increasingly difficult for acquirers to identify fake merchants that are being set up. It's so easy these days for anyone to set up a storefront and say that they're selling iPads, and they're selling an iPad for $10, and then someone decides like, oh, I never got my iPad. What happened? So it's a problematic on both sides. So acquirers who are signing up these merchants have to be able to catch these fraudulent merchants, which could be actually quite difficult. And then it's even harder for issuers. So they see this transaction come across the network and they have to identify, this transaction with a limited data set and say, hey, is this a fraudulent merchant? And so AI can help with this on both sides. It can assess the merchants, build the risk profile, correlate data from different aspects to say, okay, this is likely fraud, or from an issuer side, they can add friction to the process and confirm with someone that they wanted to actually make this transaction, or connect with other issuers and say, hey, what have you heard from this merchant? Have you seen this before? Does this work? And so AI can really help identify things like this and make this process easier.
All right. So we've gone through a couple of the use cases we're working on right now with our clients. I'd like to turn things over to Peter Fedorocko to give us an overview of some of the technological components that we've talked about and show you where we are and where we're headed with what we're able to do with agents within Good Data. So as a final reminder, questions in the Q&A box, please, as we show you this, and I will make sure Peter addresses them. Peter, take it away.
Yeah, Thank you, Ryan. I hope you see I want to show you 2 videos today because I want to focus on the narrative, and I don't want you to see me doing all the typos to the prompts. The first video will be mostly about this intelligence layer, the semantic layer and the intelligence layer, how we make sure that the AI is trusted and governed, right? So even though I'll show you a dashboard here that we have built for one of our finance customers with a lot of cool visualization, and you will shortly see a chatbot, right? Which is one of the very cool experience how even people that don't see their requested visualization on the dashboard, right, can get answers very quickly without going into the analytics designer or writing some SQLs, right? But that's just the beginning, because you have probably seen a lot of these cool demos, right? Like I go in and I'll the question and I get the visualization, right? So I don't want to be focusing on this thing. I want to show you something else. So we will start with a couple of questions, very easy, right? Our AI assistant is able to understand your questions in a natural language. It's
Peter, are you, sorry, I can't see. Oh, never mind. You're good. Keep going.
It's all good? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
I had
you're
a
good.
Zoom issue. You're good.
It's
Yeah, cool.
Ryan's human error.
So what I wanted to say is, right, like the AI assistant, you can ask questions in NLQ. It's able to follow up on the questions, right? So if you have seen, I said, okay, give me like, by the countries, top 10, right? It understands the filtering and everything. But now I want to show you something tricky, right? I ask a question, show me profits from loans in California, right? What would a bad AI or agent, and I have tested a lot of them and they usually fail this, do? Because profits from loan is something that is not encoded in the intelligence layer, right? Like there is no metric related to this one. So what our AI assistant will do is it's gonna say, I don't know, right? Because it's using this intelligence layer, the semantic layer, and it's saying, I didn't recognize profit from loans. I can, give you some other metrics, but not this one. If we try this, and if you try this on any other or a lot of different AI assistants, they will go in and they will tell you, this is your profit from loan in California, right? Because LLMs are designed to be eager to provide you the answer, right? But this is where we see a lot of risk, right? Because they don't go through this intelligence layer. But obviously, like you don't want your users use an AI that is not giving you the answers, right? So, and this is where we come into this intelligence layer, right? When you can come in, you can open this analytics catalog, right? Where we store, this is the storage of all the intelligence, right? All the metrics, all the attributes, everything that, that's available to agents to answer that question. And I can find a metric, right? Like a total interest income in this case. And I know that a lot of my customers, or, they tend to refer to it as a profits from loans, right? Or similar. So I can actually go and I can encode this information into this intelligence layer. I'll say also referred as a profit from loans. And I just close this window. I go back, I ask the same questions. And now because we extended the knowledge, of the agents and in this intelligence layer that they can work with, it will come back and it will be able to map this question profit from loans into a correct metric, like a total interest income, right? And provide you a correct answer. And as you already mentioned, Ryan, this is not coming and generating SQL, on the fly. This is actually taking the definition of this metric, the verified definition of the metric, and giving you a number that is already verified, right? And then I go in and I say, okay, break this number by date, and we show the line chart. But there is more, right? Because sometimes you have a knowledge in your company that spans beyond a single object, like a single metric, right? There is a lot of cases where you have a particular instructions that you want to give to your AI assistants. They are not encoded in our AI. Like Chase mentioned, tone of voice or the nomenclature that you use or the terminology that you use. And we have this AI memory for that, right? So this is a very powerful tool where I can come in and I can basically start giving a specific instructions to the AI assistant. And it will take these instructions and it will, answer the questions of all of the users based on these instructions. So in this case, hypothetically, your customers or your users are using a terminology corporate, which means both large enterprises and small businesses. But you don't have anything like that available in your data, right? It's a composed filter. So I can go in and I can give this instruction. When the user refers to corporate customers, always interpret these as including both large enterprises and small business customer types. In such cases, automatically apply a custom type that includes large enterprises and small businesses values, right? And I can obviously say, do I want to take this instruction and always apply it, or only when it's relevant? And the beauty of our agent is that actually, it understands, so you can give it hundreds and hundreds of these instructions, but it can intelligently select which instructions make sense in which cases, and then apply it, right? So now I go in and I say, show me profit from loans, right? It suggests me some of the metrics that are available in the intelligence layer, and I say for corporate, right? And it goes in and it's able to answer you this question. So this is the way how you can. What I wanted to show you here is that one, everything goes through this bottleneck of the intelligence layer. It's governed there, it's traceable, it's through a verified metrics, but then you have this flexibility through these tools to go in and start fine-tuning it so it works perfectly for your cases. So that's a thing that we already have in production. And I want to show you one more demo to all of you. And this is more how we are thinking about the future. There are two things that are very important. One is reasoning, right? Users don't ask the questions like, show me the profit. There's a lot of times when people want to start with the business questions, like what customers are likely to churn, or like what products that I have in my offering should I discontinue? So I want my agent to come in and perform the analysis. So think, plan, reason, use the tools, query tools, coding tools, search tools, visualizations tool to actually solve this assignment and then come back to me, right? And we see that this, the old way where you prepare the data pipeline and then the data marts and then the dashboards and then you give the dashboards to your users, it's completely flipped with the AI. You start with a business question, you don't prepare anything, you just give the question to the agent, and the agent goes in, and thanks to this intelligence layer and all of this tooling, it comes and it solves the assignment. And that's something that I'm very excited about. I want to show you the second demo. This is something that we'll be launching soon, right? So you are one of the first things. You are one of the first people that will see this today. So let me just close this one. Let me go to this one. It's an AI canvas, right? So it's an empty canvas at the beginning, and I come in. I'm in a same finance workspace that you have seen me working in the first demo, but now I'm in an AI hub. And I ask this question, which customers are likely to cancel soon? This is not show me my total. This is not a visualization question. This really needs thinking, right? And so what's happening right now, the agent is thinking, and we intentionally show all of the reasoning, right? So we don't hide the reasoning. You will see a lot of text in a gray, and this is because I'm looking through all of the reasoning that this agent does, right? So few things that are important to see. It's understanding the question, it's planning, and it's coming up with a task and handovering this task to other agents that are specifically designed to solve these assignments. So firstly, it says you need to identify customers likely to cancel, and it needs to query the data. And this is beauty of as a code approach. And I know that we are getting a little more technical today, but when you think about the semantic layer or the intelligence layer, what you want to have in the future is not a human curated semantic layer or the intelligence layer, right? Because humans wouldn't catch up with the agents. Agents needs the flexibility. They need to change the semantic model. They need to develop the metrics that they need to answer the business questions, which is something you see here. My agent comes in, it knows it needs to query the data, and because good data, it's as a code defined, it's coding a new metrics that then it uses in the visualization, right? So it pulls the data, and on the right side in this canvas, I actually see the real data, right? So on the right side, it's giving me all the outputs. So I can very easily verify. And then it goes and it says, I need to flag customers at the risk of cancellation. So I probably need to run some analysis. So it's writing the code, the Python code, like your human analyst would do in some notebook. And then it's executing this code and getting the results, right? And then, so you see, so I expanded the code so you see everything that has been written. I can actually verify it. And I'm intentionally showing you more of the internal thinking of the agent. And then it's working on the summary, right? And it comes with a summary, right? So I ask the question, I get a summary, right? And the agent coordinated all the planning and all the tasks, because now the agents actually executed this task and I'm just getting the answer. But that's not the end, right? This is where I ask something that I care about. I'm fine-tuning so I can continue in this discussion and I can fine-tune the questions and the instructions. Or I can say, this is an interesting analysis that I want you, agent, to execute periodically and just send me list of the customers that are likely to cancel. So I can promote this chat and this canvas into something we call the AI app, and what Ryan mentioned at the beginning. And it will become the app, right? So I go in, I click generate the AI app, and I'm in the empty workspace. So soon you will see, okay, here is the AI app, right? There is an app called customer cancellation risk. There's the description of the app. Agent actually schedule it to run every month, right? And now I would wait and I would get the notification, but only to show you what would be the automated insights, the automation, right? When agents don't need to be initiated by humans in the chat, but they are automatically work in the background, right? I'll just run it right now to simulate it, and it's running, right? So imagine the month go through, it's running, and it's sending me the message. And if I open the inbox, I have the summary ready for me, where I see the list of the summary, who are the customers at the risk, and a list of the customers, so I can take and follow up actions on it. Obviously, this is not the only destination, right? Good data was very strong in embedded analytics, and now how are we thinking about the agents are embedded agents, right? So you can embed them into your dashboards, or they can even run in the background and you don't see them, and they send you notifications into your Slack, or they are living somewhere inside your Salesforce workflow, right? But in this case, we decided just to show you that, I'm receiving it directly in my Good Data inbox. So that's everything that I wanted to show you today. Here is the list of agents that were actually working for me on the background to make sure that this question can be answered. And this is the future that we see. You will have a library of a lot of agents that Good Data have. You will be able to build your own agentic workflows, right? Through the conversations, then use it through the conversations, and then promote it to AI apps that are automatically running in the background and doing this work, this intelligent work for you. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was interesting for you.
Peter, we have a couple questions. So one is, can you add specific reasons for each customer for cancellation risk? I think the heart of this question is, can you iterate? In that example, you asked a question, it produced an output, and you said, okay, I'll use this output. But if it hadn't been perfect, could you have iterated through 5, 6, 7 times?
Yeah, absolutely. I just, for the sake of time, I haven't shown any a follow-up questions, but obviously you can fine tune and say, no, I want you to make a decision based on the recent payments that they did or something like that. And if the agent has the data, or even if it doesn't have the data, it goes in, defines the metrics, and then refines and thinks again and again. So this workflow can actually continue forever. And it's not the black box. That's something that is very important for our customers, is you have these agents and you have the agentic workflow, and you will be able to fine-tune the individual agents and build the workflows inside Good Data, right? Because someone wants to send it to the inbox, someone wants to send it to a Slack, right? Or someone wants to have a special instructions, you must always use, we talked about the AI memory and AI catalog, right? So there's a lot of, I think, the openness, what the agents are doing and how they are actually orchestrated into this workflow and where they are embedded. It's very important for us, right? No black boxes, no lock-ins.
And then Marcos Fernando dos Santos asks, he states, the AI assistant doesn't appear for me. Marcos, I think you have to turn it on, right? So either you or someone with the ability to go into the settings of your workspaces needs to turn on the AI assistant, and then it will appear.
Yeah. And you need to provide the OpenAI or LLMK, the access key, right? So that's part of the configuration where your admin actually needs to configure it, so turn it on for you.
And then Andre Kubera asks, thanks for the great demos and thought leadership. How do you think about the agent orchestration, agents delegating to other agents, reusability, etc.?
That's a very good question, and I have been thinking and discussing this with our customers a lot. We are thinking about agents being very granular, having our own library on the agents, but if I need to do some prediction in the future, I believe something like a GitHub or like a node package manager, and I know that I'm getting into too technical right now, will exist, right? So imagine a library of millions and millions of agents that you can just very easily like check into your workflow, and you say like, I want an agent that is writing the most elegant Python code, and you will see that there is 20 of them, and you check in one of them that has most of the stars. And maybe it's going to be from good data, and maybe it's going to be from someone else, right? And then you see like, oh, it's not working for me, or I prefer something else. So you just like uninstall it and checking the new one, right? And you will own your agentic workflows, right? So you will compose them from these granular agents, right? And you will instruct them, and you will create these complex workflows, and then you will like basically extend it like with the new agents, the same way as you are building the code and the application today. Why you see a lot of agentic workflows like today appearing on the market? When you think about it, they are very easy, right? The use cases are things like shopping. Right, like, but this is when you think about it, the agent, the only tool that the agent needs is like API calls, like add to cart and check out and remove from the cart, and these are very easy use cases. The analytics, I would say, the AI in analytics or agent in analytics are the hardest one, because every task that you have seen needs this brutal infrastructure, right, with the compute and the query and like transformations and semantic modeling, right? Which the agents that you can build, right? You can go and you can take the agentic workflow from OpenAI today, and they will say like, you can build it, right? But it's all just the front end thing, right? Because if you say now I need to run the code somewhere, or I need to query the data, it's not there, right? So you still need this infrastructure where you run the code, where you run the queries, and obviously you just don't want to put your agents on top of it. So there needs to be this infrastructure, and then needs to be this intelligent layer to which these agents connect. So in the future, I believe cloud of the agents, your agentic workflows that you build like a Lego, Ryan mentioned it today, and then the intelligence layer through which they go in, right, and work with this powerful infrastructure, because they will run a lot of queries and they will run a lot of code. So you make sure that they have something performant and something that's not going to burn through your budget.
And that's one thing.
I would just add.
Go ahead,
sorry,
Chase.
Ryan. Let me just add one thing. I think from a practical point of view, you can create something that's very complex and autonomous, but I think what you need to do as an organization, especially in this sort of sector, is that you need to start small. Have an agentic use case that makes sense. Make sure that works. Use it internally first before you expose it to customers. Test it, make sure it works, and then you can build from there. So I think you really want to start small, make sure this works. Understand the accuracy and trace everything and the transparency that we talked about, and then build ever more complex things. I think if you start with something too big, it'll be difficult for the organization to put it into production. There'll be too many issues, and then also your costs will balloon. We talked about the operational losses at the beginning. I think you can start to control that with a small use case. Start small, build from there, and you'll be way better off in the end than trying to tackle the big thing at the beginning.
Absolutely. Like every time I talk with our customers, right, we starting with a very lightweighted agent, and then they say like, oh, there should be a devil advocate to all of your questions. And I'm saying, yes, but this is a specific to your case. So you can build, or we will give you a devil's advocate agent, and you will just plug it in. So after every user question, you will have a devil's advocate. And someone else is saying, oh, I want a confirmation, right? Like, it needs to ask more questions, right? So because I just say like a cancel, like who's likely to cancel, but the agent didn't ask like, and what do you mean by it, or how do you define it, But you can like remove the devil's advocate and put a confirmation agent, or you can have like a devil's advocate who say like, are you sure, blah 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 blah, I'm very sarcastic, and then you go in and you have a confirmation one. And so you start with the lightweighted workflows, and then you are adding, right, like a visualization and a confirmation and a coding and a search and maybe something that can, you know, build the app for you, right? So you will have like a custom React, right? So yes, I think we are starting with the agents and agentic workflows, very lightweighted, just a minimal number of agents, because you also want to make sure that you understand what they are doing and you can trace it. And more agents you have, like more API calls to the LLMs, they do. But then, you know, even Andrej Karpathy had a really good like a webinar or a podcast a few weeks ago, and he said like, you know, to have the agents, like really valuable agents in the production, you will probably need to have a lot like a very complex workflows to make sure that they resemble and that they can actually replace or like augment the human employees.
All right, so we got one last question, and then we're going to wrap things up here. I want to thank you all for coming and all the great, providing all the great questions as we went through it. It made it a really, I think, a valuable session, your questions especially. The last question is, what safeguards or mechanisms are in place to ensure data quality over time and prevent bad or inaccurate data from feeding the agent? And I'll say one thing that we do at Good Data is we actually have a semantic quality agent that you can run in Good Data that will look at your semantic models and the knowledge and memories that you've provided to the Good Data agents and kind of grade it and point out to you, hey, you don't have, you know, you have these very common mistakes in your semantic models and in the knowledge you're providing to the agents that you need to fix, or else your agent quality is going to suffer. That's a simple example of what we're already doing today. Peter, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I just say that we mention a lot of agents and we forget about our SQA agent. Yeah, that's a guy who will be very sad tonight if he knows that we haven't mentioned him. And he's very valuable because he sits in this semantic layer or this intelligence layer and helping you proactively, just verify that it's correct. So even before the agents who are extending the semantic model and writing the metrics, right? That you have this guy there who's helping you with making sure that your semantics is in best possible shape.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up there. I want to thank you all for coming again and being such a great audience. You can, of course, keep up with us everywhere. So LinkedIn, Facebook, we have on GitHub, we're on Instagram, we have a community Slack. By the way, if you are one of our customers or just interested in Good Data, this is one of the best places to keep in touch with us. You will get notifications about new features as they launch. And it's where, if you want to communicate with people at Good Data, this is one of the best places to do it. Also, join us on December 10th for our Q4 product updates webinar. So this is where we will be going over what was delivered in Q4, what's coming in Q1 and beyond, and doing demos of recently released and upcoming features that you are going to want to follow. So again, that's December 10th. Join us there. And I think that's it. So Peter, Chase, thanks for joining me today. And it was a lot of fun. You two guys are great to have on the show. So you make my job easy. Thank you so much. And until next time, everybody, I'm Ryan, and this is your Good Data webinar. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.